Great. Well, it's nice to meet everybody and to hear a little bit about your organizations, and hopefully we will have a great conversation today and really share some ideas. So I've been, even though I've just been with Esperança almost a year, I've been doing this work for almost 30 years now, for a variety of health services and educational nonprofits. But this is really my first work with an international group. So it's exciting to get to meet other people in that space and hopefully share ideas and learn from one another. But today I'm talking about something that I'm super passionate about, and that's cultivating a culture of philanthropy and really kind of helping. I understand there are a couple other fundraising professionals on the Zoom call, and helping us break down this and debunk myths around fundraising or finding resources. So early on in my career, we used to call fundraising FR. And instead of fundraising, I like to refer to it as finding resources, because it's not just money, it's in-kind donations, it's volunteers, all that time, talent, and treasure that we hear about. So I am going to share the screen and we'll walk through some slides. And really, I want this to be a conversation. Well, I don't know, since there's so few of us, maybe we won't do a breakout room. We'll just share ideas. So we'll just kind of go with the flow. So bear with me, and I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Can you see that? Is it the slideshow, or do you see the frame?
It's not in presentation mode yet.
Okay. Let me stop and I'll try and do that first. Okay, how about that?
Great.
Got it? All right, so we're gonna talk about cultivating a culture of philanthropy with all of us today and our organization, and what does that mean? So I just wanna start and do a little poll. So maybe you can throw in the chat, and Anna's agreed to help me. And we talked a little bit as we introduced, but what's your role in the organization? Are you in fundraising? Are you in administration? Do you deliver participant or client services, program services? So that's the first thing, just to kind of gauge and see who's with us today. Your role in the organization. Throw that in the chat box. Super. So we've got that. We know we've got some fundraisers here, some programs, so a nice mix. So as we talk about the culture of philanthropy, so philanthropy is a subset, I really believe this, of organizational culture. And culture can be defined as a way of life of a group of people. So behaviors, beliefs, values, and symbols that are accepted and we communicate by. So the culture of philanthropy refers to our organization's attitude toward philanthropy and fund development. So this is where hopefully it will get fun. So I've got two more kind of poll questions for you to throw into the chat. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not at all involved or you don't know, and 10 being I'm asked and I know and I contribute to what's going on in marketing and fundraising. So rank your involvement in fundraising and marketing in your organization. So 1 being not at all involved, 10 being you're asked and you know what's going on with fundraising and marketing in your organization. So we've got some 10s, some 7s. So we got a stellar group here today. All right. So last question for the chat for this. This is about embracing the culture of philanthropy. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the least comfortable, or you're just unsure, and 10 being so comfortable, I eat, sleep, and breathe philanthropy, how would you say you embrace the culture of philanthropy in your organization? All right, we've got some 10s, some 8s, 7, 8, 10, and 9. Super. So thank you for that. So hopefully, as we go, Patty, 7, it's complicated. So yes, it is complicated, and that's part of my life's passion is to help uncomplicate the culture of philanthropy. So this is why it's my belief, my opinion, that effective organizations, so an effective organization embraces a culture of philanthropy. And that looks like each volunteer and every employee feels it. They feel that culture. Clients and donors recognize it whenever they connect with the organization. It's just this authentic culture and feel. So let's move ahead, and we're going to define philanthropy and getting to that culture. So it's just a textbook definition. Philanthropy is defined as voluntary action for the common good. I mean, we all engage in it. We do it. We know people. We're all in this to serve others, to make the world a better place, right? Resource development or fundraising is defined as the engine that drives philanthropy. And a lot of people hear that and they think, oh, I'm the CEO or I'm a program director. I don't have anything to do with philanthropy. But hopefully today what I'll share is things you can take back so people embrace that engine that drives philanthropy. And a unique integration I just wanted to share and plant some seeds. Fundraising plus marketing plus volunteerism plus grant requests plus community engagement. That really is your philanthropy, that heart of philanthropy that drives that culture. So again, philanthropy, it's defined as goodwill toward or love of fellow human beings. It is something that as human services agencies, NGOs, nonprofits, we really all need to be a part of and build into it. So this is kind of my vision and how I think about it. And we'll get a chance for you to share towards the end a little bit about your vision. So for me and in my various roles in nonprofit organizations, I work to have the following happen: that the entire staff, the entire employee team embraces fundraising, community engagement, marketing, and volunteer efforts. Everyone has a relationship with a donor. It's not just the fundraiser's relationship with the donor. It's a relationship with the organization that's enhanced by program team members, volunteers, participants, as well as fundraising team members. Each campaign has a volunteer component. There's a volunteer that's involved with it. And the CEO is passionate not only about donor satisfaction, but volunteer satisfaction and client or participant satisfaction. Our CEOs need to embrace all of that, because you'll see in the next couple slides why that's so important to the culture of philanthropy. To get there, you need to find ways that everyone, no matter what the role, whether they're development, communication, staff, board, program staff, volunteers, participants, or donors, share their passion about your organization and mission. So when that passion is there, it's evident. That's what we mean by the culture of philanthropy. When that passion is there, it's evident, and people are aware that that culture happens. When the culture of philanthropy is strong, you make a more successful, sustainable organization. The two S's, the double S threat, successful and sustainable organization. It's a place where there is a loving environment where people want to work, where people want to volunteer, where people want to receive services and participate, and where people want to donate. So it's a shared culture for sure. So building a culture of philanthropy, I have this here in green, help us help you. This is for all the development team members on the call. I think I speak for others in my profession. We always want the help of program staff because it helps us bring resources to the table. So these are some things that are best practice. A culture of philanthropy embraces relationship building. It's not about transactional fundraising. It's not about give us this. It's building that relationship so people see the impact of their investment. It's engaging with people who share your belief and values. It's building a community of believers. And when all of that happens, the dollars, the resources, they follow. So again, it's when a culture of philanthropy is built when everyone, no matter their role in the organization, embraces customer-centered and donor-centered philosophy and work. It's not just mission-centered and client-centered. It's that customer-centered, who are the people that we're serving and who are the people who join us, our stakeholders who help fund the mission. Everyone in the organization, from the janitor to the chair of the board, understands that philanthropy and fund development are critical to organizational health and that each individual has a role in the process. First and foremost, and I may be singing to the choir here, but everyone is an ambassador for the organization's services and for philanthropy and fund development. It's all of those. I know I can say Anna isn't just about the work that happens in our international communities. She knows and she understands what goes on with the administration of the organization and fund development as well. So how do we get there? Every team member is an ambassador. What does this look like? So again, you'll hear this common theme. Philanthropy and resource development are just intertwined. They belong to the entire organization. They weave throughout. Every individual, every department, every team member, all volunteers are involved and intertwined to create this culture of philanthropy. When that happens, and when program folks deliver their job and the services to our participants with excellence, when there's an understanding of how all jobs are integrated, treating all with care and respect, and that's treating clients, customers, donors, volunteers, team members, agency partners, and community members, we become an ambassador. When we do all these things, we become an ambassador for our organization. And when you're an ambassador and you do all of this, an ask just happens organically. There's strategy that your development team will put strategy behind it, but your involvement won't be that strategy or that we want to get rid of the fear of asking. It just comes, it happens very organically. So this is the ambassador domino effect that I love to share with people and to help folks who are not in a fund development role understand how resource development is the engine that drives philanthropy. So if the quality of the program isn't good, it doesn't matter what the fundraiser does. If a board member doesn't talk positively about our organization, it doesn't matter what our CEO's efforts are given towards raising dollars. If the receptionist isn't customer-centered, the best direct mail solution will not be as effective as it can be. So that's the domino effect. And then the other piece of this that's part of the dominoes, donor gift size just doesn't matter. Everyone respects and honors all donors. In fact, the best culture of philanthropy sees philanthropy as a democratizing act. So every gift matters. Yes, we have strategy around folks who can make gifts, that return on investment, but every gift matters, and everyone on our team, that's part of the culture of philanthropy, is understanding that. So let's talk now. I've described somewhat quickly this culture of philanthropy that I believe in and try and instill. I would love to, hear people. We can go off mute. I'd love to hear what's happening in your agency around philanthropy. Are people in program folks involved in asks? Is your marketing team getting stories that you need? How are people feeling? I think it was shared that it's complicated in the organization from California. So I would love to have people just talk a little bit about what's happening in your agency, if you're willing.
Well, Patty, shall you and I jump in here together and
Go for it first, Annabelle. I'll support you.
okay. So actually, I think we neglected fundraising in the very beginning because we had an amazing donor that gave us so much. She sort of just took care of us. Unfortunately, her resources dwindled, and so they no longer exist. And so we've really had to now look outside our founding members and our board members. And I would say we've been doing this diligently for 3-4 years. Has it been longer than that, Patty? I'm not sure. And so now we've embraced it wholeheartedly. And personally, you can speak, I find it very hard work.
So we're, I think, a unicorn in the nonprofit space. We started with a gift, and then for the last 25 years, we've had no grants or gifts. We've been totally internally funded by our trainings and services. So in the last 3 years, we're like, this is really hard work to just push ourselves forward by our own effort. We should be expanding this, and people love us. So why are we not getting donations? And we've had to turn the car real hard. And so when you're talking about a culture of philanthropy, it's just not part of our culture that anyone gives to us, because everyone thinks we're doing great, but we really need help. So we have to change that impression that we don't that we really want participation. And the other thing I would just add, which I thought was really funny, Annabelle, was we are an emotional intelligence company, and we provide training. And I was thinking that, as you mentioned, from top to bottom, every single one of our staff members has gone through our complete training. Everyone's online with our mission. Everyone lives and breathes the stuff we do, but they don't really donate. Even internally, our own staff doesn't give, they believe in what we're doing. And I'm sure they talk to their family and friends about it, but not enough to get anybody to throw $1 our way. So it's a very funny thing.
That is an amazing, it would be an amazing case study to work with you guys.
Yeah. Well, we'd be happy to volunteer.
Just because there's lots of things you could implement some strategy. We'll have to have some offline conversations because I have some ideas for you. But it truly is amazing. You talk about your staff going through your program and not donating, but it's how do you ask them to donate, and the importance of, I've always worked in organizations where we ask our staff, so when they ask others, you can say, well, I'm a donor too. I not only work here, but I'm a donor. And that just, often we get stuck into, I don't want to ask somebody for me, but you're not asking for, I don't ask people for money for Tami Bohannon. I ask people for money for Esperança, so we can deliver the services in the places that we serve to impact these people. And then we have a fabulous marketing department who's a one-person marketing manager, and she's on the call, but she is able to really portray these stories of impact that help us. And that's all part of that culture of philanthropy. So thank you, ladies, for sharing. Does anybody else want to share where they are? Mark, do you want to talk about Culture of Philanthropy and Hope for Kids International?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, and I heard Annabelle say this, or Patty, that they don't know that your organization needs money. And I think the key message is that you don't need money, but the people you serve need support. And so as soon as we make it about giving money to Hope for Kids or any other organization, it shifts the donor's mind to compare how you're doing and how you're paying your people and all those kind of things. But when you shift it to the people that you're serving, then actually the ask is easier, because it isn't for you or for the organization that you work for, it's for those that you're serving. And so I think that's a key shift, because people like to give to successful organizations. So as soon as they hear that, boy, we need money or else, they aren't as apt to continue to serve. So
one of our obstacles, Patty, you can tell me whether or not you agree with this. I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but as normally most nonprofits, our salaries are not gigantic. And so many of our people feel like they're giving to us already because they live in a competitive society or environment, or certainly in the state of California if they happen to be here. And so they already feel they're making a donation to us because they're working for less than probably they're worth. Yes.
There's ways you can address that and talk about that. I think often it's not talked about. So Anna will connect us, and I'm happy to.
Yay. Okay.
So. How about Clint? I know you're on mute, and I don't know that we met Clint, but Clint, do you want to add anything? Culture of Philanthropy in your organization, maybe tell us a little bit about your organization.
I think we do, a really good job of embracing that culture from a holistic perspective. From top to bottom, I mean, COVID has changed us a little bit, but I guess just to kind of explain our organization, we have 8 permanent packing centers, and then we used to do 350 events around the nation where we would bring in volunteers and ask them to pack food for kids around the globe. With that said, our employees who run those sessions, who do the core work of just where it all begins, all the way up to the top, we have to believe in that philanthropy. We have to believe in that fundraising, because if we don't, in case in point, in the previous year, we had 1.4 million people come through our doors. And if we didn't make that ask while we had their attention, we would have failed miserably at that, I feel. So it's important for us, and I think we do a good job. And it was interesting, as you were talking, I kind of wrote down the challenge that I think we have is, as you wrote down, like everybody should have a relationship with that donor. I think those roles and the understanding of the development, adding that strategy, sometimes get blurry for us. So I think that's a super key point, at least for us to take a look at, is just how do we continue to convey roles, that acquisition of a donor, that first step, and then that continuing strategy with the donor, so everybody understands that piece and that continuing life cycle of that donor.
Super. Thank you for adding that. We can talk a little bit about the blurring of roles and some things you can do to combat that. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody from the Esperança team want to share? Oh, and we've got somebody new. Hi, Sherilyn. Welcome. Welcome. Why don't you take yourself off mute and just tell us what agency you're with?
I'm with 6 Seconds. I apologize. I was in this other important meeting, but I knew I had to come here. So I see some of my colleagues. I've really appreciated being a part of this network. I've learned so much just about nonprofit and everything. And I'm so thrilled to introduce you to some more of my colleagues. And thank you for your expertise in fundraising and making it everyone's job. I think that's a very important topic.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're here, and feel free to chime in as we move along. We're gonna now, this is part of the kind of the nuts of everything. So you've heard of top 10 lists. So for me, this is great because it's 10 plus one more. So these are 11 steps that you can use to build a culture of philanthropy in your organization, and you can tweak them a little bit, and hopefully we'll have some time towards the end of this, and we could do some breakout groups, or we can just have a conversation together to talk about, okay, what would it look like if my organization implemented this culture of philanthropy? And when I talk about culture, again, it's just integrating the entire organization, whether you're a program team member, an admin team member, a board member. What's your role in fundraising? And again, oftentimes people hear the word fundraising or development and they're like, I'm not asking anybody for money. I can't do that. I don't want someone to tell me no. But there's roles everybody can play. And I loved how Clint brought up the fact that sometimes roles get blurred. And I think that if we're strategic and communication is the key to everything, we can help unblur some of those roles. So again, integrate fundraising or finding resources into every staff and board meeting. So just a little update, we've talked about fundraising, moving from being very transactional to building relationships. So if you bring something about your fundraising and marketing efforts, your resource development efforts into every staff and board meeting, it's that kind of trickle down communication. They know what's going on. They're not surprised. I learned early on in my career, never surprise the CEO. Well, I think you should never surprise really anybody on your staff. And if you can drip communication about your work and what you're doing, a tangible tactic of that is Esperança is having we do a hope breakfast, and it'll be in September. So we just developed the theme and created the graphic. So at our next staff meeting, we'll be able to share that with everybody well ahead of time, so they won't be surprised when they see it. So if you have a way to integrate fundraising into every staff and certainly every board meeting, and in my experience, a lot of times we save fundraising to the last part of the agenda and we run out of time, so it gets shoved aside. Try and get a commitment from whoever creates that agenda, your board chair and your CEO, to move that up. This one's key for me, and we often overlook it. This asking program staff members or team members for advice on development materials, such as appeal letters, social media strategies, all of that. Program team members, no matter the size of your agency, they know, they have the stories, they know what's going on, they know the nuances. So a quick example I'll share about this is Tatum, who's on the call, is our development assistant, and she's doing a pitch for Esperança, and she sat with Anna and shared her pitch and got feedback, and Anna gave her some great tidbits and helped her change her story about what we were doing and what we weren't doing. So it's always good to ask program staff members, because you're building that relationship with them, and it gives them an idea of what's going on. They're not going to be surprised when a story about participants they serve appears in a direct mail piece or on the website or in a blog. Another idea to incorporate the culture of philanthropy is to spend one-on-one time with board members, donors, and others involved in the organization's work. Get to know them individually, find out their stories. Why did they get involved? And a lot of times this effort's led by your executive director, your CEO, your development director, but those conversations can be shared in team meetings, what did you learn about this board member? Why are they involved, or this donor? I think I love to share stories with program team members about why donors give, because they get to put the donor's investment into action, and they take it full circle. So I think that's really key there is, and again, Clint talked about blurring lines. It's not for everyone to spend time one-on-one, but if you invite a donor to chat with the CEO or your development director, take them on a little tour, introduce them to the program people, let them ask questions, and it just enriches that visit. I think another way to build the culture of philanthropy is to share these mission moments at every staff and board meeting. Tell stories about clients, donors, or community members who were affected or inspired by your work, and encourage staff members to share their stories. It's always more fruitful, and I think a little more inspirational to hear it directly from a team member, how they see the impact of the work. And a really great recent example I can give you is our domestic program director. We just did a Mother's Day event on May 10th, because in Mexico, Mother's Day is always celebrated on May 10th. And it was a great event. It was COVID. We pivoted a little bit because of COVID, but Maria sent a very touching email thanking everybody for being involved who helped put it on. But she shared how it was meaningful to see how these mothers who took part on Monday were impacted. And it made it more real. And it, as a fundraising professional, gave me a little more information and a story that I could share. Here's a couple more. And this is geared especially towards development and marketing professionals. Shadow members of the program staff in their work, and invite them on your donor visits, or when you bring a donor around, make sure that they have a chance to hear from program staff. And this could be something that could be done with some planning, but could board members shadow your program staff? You have to set some ground rules up, because it's not always great to have board members in the weeds, right? But you could do a shadow program there and help them really see the work firsthand. Again, invite donors into your organization, not just for guided tours, but I know one organization, once a year, they had an annual meeting that was a board meeting, and they invited their donors to that. I've never been a part of inviting donors to a staff meeting. I think with planning and with good communication, that could be possible. Creating regular opportunities for program staff to share with development staff their experiences with clients or constituents in the field. I think this is key. We're always wanting stories, right, to share on blogs or social media posts or in newsletters or direct mail. And I think that the key for me in my years in this work has been to keep it consistent and to close the communication loop. So in my last gig, we were always asking program team members to write blogs, and they wrote them in the beginning and then they stopped. This predated my time there, and then they stopped, and they really didn't want to do it because they didn't ever see what happened to their blogs. They didn't see them on the website, or they didn't see how we use them. So we added 15 minutes into the work time, but the social media coordinator would send a link to the social media post or to the blog, thank the person who wrote it, and also CC their supervisor. So they would see, we're not just asking you to write these blogs so they went into a file. We share them, and it helps us tell the story of the impact of investment. And then celebrate success. When you reach 100% board participation, or board or staff member bring in new donors, recognize and celebrate it. In one place where I worked, I had a big glass window that I created a kind of a living whiteboard, and we had our fundraising goals a couple different ways up. And anybody who came up to the third floor saw that, and we made sure we told people, hey, how close we were and what we needed to do to get there, and their stories. If they gave us stories that would help, or if we had a certain donor give to a certain cause area, we shared that with that team. So it's always good to celebrate success with everybody, not just your fundraising team. Then the last three here are keeping your donors, your staff members, your trustees, and other supporters updated on your work, your progress, your challenges, your accomplishments. And I think this can be overwhelming, but we do great newsletters. Make sure the newsletters go to all your team members. Can newsletters be repurposed? Can parts of them go to donors or to volunteers? We're not about creating more work. We're about, kind of working more efficiently and repurposing. I learned this term early on in my career called creative theft. And it's all about like reusing someone else's idea and tweaking it, and then reusing the things that you have to share with other parts of your organization. And again, it isn't just the development team who should hear the stories of donors who are impacted, whose lives have changed by the work that we do. That can be motivational or inspirational for your program team members. So as our friends in California get some donors who are impacted by the work of emotional intelligence training, maybe share that back with your program, your boots on the ground program folks who deliver that work, so that they know people really care about what they're doing and the work that work they've dedicated their life to. And then this is when planning pitches and other donor communications, look beyond how much donors give and personalize that contact with them as much as possible by considering each person's giving history, aspirations, and preferences. And this is really geared toward my fellow development folks on the call. I think as we look at return on investment and we spend time and not do the cookie cutter approach, but make it less transactional and more relational, there's ways we can strategize to do that. So those are the 11 ideas on ways you could build a culture of philanthropy into your organization. I've got a couple other slides that are more specific, but I would love to, I feel a little bit like a talking head, and Anna is going to share these slides, this PowerPoint with you, and any information from the chat. So you'll have them, and my contact information, and I'm happy to share. I think this is an important network, and we know that when we're all successful as a global community. So these are some more ideas. Again, it just is kind of rehashing those steps, but stories are so key. And getting those stories, writing blogs, or this one has to do with more grant opportunities and funding. So make sure your fundraising team knows what your needs are. What's the budget? What are your needs? And they should be looking for those first. And then if there's a last minute higher than expected need or something comes up, like we had hurricanes hit a country that we served. So we, Anna said, we need to raise some additional dollars. So we kind of shifted gears, but it's that constant conversation. So it's having that relationship with your program team and your admin team, so you can talk about these things and share, hey, here's where we are. So that's kind of my extra little tactic for being aware of budgets and funds. This is key for marketing and communication. Your marketing team needs your help. They need your help. Program folks and CEOs, They want those stories, those success stories, and really good marketing folks know how to repurpose those. And Elena is really good with this. She gets other people to draft blogs to sit. You can sit for 30 minutes and come up with 400 or 500 words, but those blogs are key and they can be repurposed. And these are oftentimes people are like, oh, I don't know how to tell a story. Well, this is probably the best slide for that. What makes this story interesting for followers? Why should they care? How is their investment going to impact a person's life? What happened? What are the details? There's some great little tips to help pull that out of you. And then a great photo just goes a million miles. So great photos. And now that we have these things, this makes life easier, right? And a best practice is for organizations to have media releases. It's really a good practice to do. So if you don't have them, we can send you a sample. But that has to be a tag team effort. Program staff know the participants, they can collect those. But that's kind of around marketing and communications. And then volunteers, this is one of my other loves. Volunteer-centric organizations are enriched by a cadre of volunteers who are engaged and empowered to achieve the mission of the organization. You can read that there. I think every organization is just helped by volunteers, but it has to be for the mission of the organization and to help the staff, not to cater to a corporate need or a volunteer need to make them feel good. It has to move your mission forward. And those volunteers are donating their time. Many of them will donate treasure as well, or talent, and we should never be afraid to ask. And they'll tell us, hey, I give you my time. That's the resource that I can share with you. But volunteers are a whole nother area, and they make great ambassadors if they know your story and your mission. So don't be afraid to utilize volunteers. So this gets us to kind of my last question for us to talk about. We've got, is it 10 minutes, Anna? Till we wrap. So what would your organization look like, feel like, if it truly embraced a culture of philanthropy? So for Annabelle and Patty in California, think 5 years from now when you have, you've broken through and people understand that you need funds to, you need people to invest in your mission to get your work done. It sounds like Clint talked about that there is a embracing of the culture of philanthropy there, and Mark as well. But what would it look like if you just did one thing that I shared with you today? If you took one thing and tweaked it a little bit, or did it, what would your organization look or feel like? Anybody want to share, or is there an aha moment, or could even be, I don't agree with that, Tami. This is what I think. I love those moments too. So
well, I don't know that I will share either of what you asked, but I'll share something else. Okay.
Sure.
Which is that Patty did this amazing job with UNICEF, and we created this amazing project. We actually reached 100.5 million children. We had something like 10 to 15,000 volunteers, and then COVID hit. Okay, so our goal is to double that. And I'm thinking with a little money, oh my gosh, what could we accomplish to Patty's enormous effort here?
Awesome, congratulations. I have a feeling that you'll persist and get there.
Oh yes, we won't give up.
So I love your question, because Annabelle, this is something that we've talked about, as opposed to like clean water or, full bellies or something. Emotional intelligence is really hard to, like, what does it look like if everyone had emotional intelligence? Like, that would be great if we knew what that looked like, because I would talk a lot about it. But I have to really sharpen what success looks like in what what healthy relationships and kids with parents who have the skills to raise them with emotional, like all those things are hard to show. And I have to learn how to tell that story when we do have success, so we could really hold it up as a guide.
And she totally could. If someone is emotionally intelligent, that makes them employable or a better parent. So you've got
We've
some
had a lot of
good
research
stuff.
lately about the connection with emotional well-being, especially coming out of COVID, the mental health crisis that we're facing at school right now that was completely not being addressed. That's where our next sort of initiative is going to be. So thank you. I really appreciate all of your support today.
Awesome. We'll just keep going down the line. Sherilyn, do you want to talk a little bit about your organization and anything you heard that might be helpful?
Well, I work with Annabelle and Patty, so I'm just so glad to, honestly feel supported that we're all having these difficult conversations about fundraising and what it means at the board level and the marketing and the communications. And then I'm more on the program end. And basically, how do all three of us work together to like set goals for each of our departments and areas and then strive toward them, and so I think getting alignment and making sure that it's part of the how of the organization, it takes a culture shift. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. But everybody has a role. Clint talked about that. I love that he brought up the blurring of the roles. It really is. As a fundraiser, I'm not asking a program person to ask someone or fund that $10,000 need, but tell me some great stories or show me some impact and make sure I get that data and I can craft a great story. And if I can bring a donor by in a way that's not exploitive, it's just working like this together instead of like this. So thank you for sharing that. And for reminding us that it takes a lot of work. So Mark, how about you?
Well, when you talk about blurring the lines, we have officially decided to blur the lines. And I previously worked for an organization where I had 8 gift officers, and all of them had their territories and worked and talked to people. I came to a small organization that had no gift officers, had me doing marketing and development. But I did have program directors that had great relationship with donors and knew what they were delivering. So what I found my role to be is to enable and equip them to tell the story and communicate the need with the people that they have relationships with. And we just had one secured a $100,000 gift. We had another one just made a $500,000 proposal for an endowment gift.
Wow.
And these are people that head up the water department, the projects department, sponsorships. So, my role then is to help them along that path, because there's no way that they can tell me how great their program is and that I can, with the same passion, communicate it to a donor. Yes, I can understand it and I can experience it, but they do it best. So we've decided to officially blur the lines and keep them blurred. And my role is just to be the coach and umpire and try to help along the way. I'm working at expanding the work that we do with planned giving and gifts of stock and all the other details that go with it. But they really are the deliverers of the need. And very rarely do we actually have to ask for an amount. It's mostly communicate the need, which oftentimes includes an amount, but the need is really for the people that we serve. So we've blurred them, and I think we're going to keep them blurred.
I think that's terrific. That's a great example of the culture of philanthropy. And I think even though you've got blurred roles, from what I'm hearing, you have distinct responsibilities. They have responsibility. You're equipping. I love that you equip and enable them. You kind of do that background, make sure everything's set and secure so that if someone wants to donate stock, then you would step in and make sure that happens.
Then it's easy. We make it easy.
Yeah, I love it. You enable, equip, and then it's easy. I love, there's something we can do with those E's. That's awesome. Thank you. Clint, how about you? Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, Mark, and I love what you just said about, intentionally blurring those lines. And I think, walking away from today, I mean, I think, timing is always impeccable, Tami. And I sat down today confused with an issue of how do we, as a development team who's now separate from some of our operations team, just to expand upon those relationships, because our operations team starts our donor relationships. That's our acquisition model when they come to volunteer with us. And I just am inspired in how do we, as you said, share some more of those stories, share that impact, get them to share that impact, start to build some more of that cohesiveness. With development being out of sight, out of mind, I think we have lost touch a little bit through COVID. And it's time to inspire that a little bit again, because if that's where our donors come from, we need to figure out how to, just continue to grow those relationships from where they're currently at. So.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to add anything? I don't want to leave any of my Esperança teammates out.
I can add something. I think as I'm learning more about how we can try to embed this throughout our entire organization, I think one of the areas that program people see as challenging is making sure that our board is also acting as ambassadors, making sure that we're equipping them with the tools, the information, the stats, whatever it is, the stories, whatever it is that they can like hook onto. It only has to be like one or two things. You can't give them too much, right? But one or two tidbits that they can hook onto, and then use those tools to spread the message and to be ambassadors of our brand. And I think, if we keep down this road with the culture of philanthropy, I think we'll get there. We're just still figuring out like the pieces of like, how much is too much, how much is enough, exactly what do you need? And then different people are attracted to our work in different ways. So you kind of have to feed them like the right little nugget that speaks to them, and then that'll like sink into their brain, right? So I think it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a long haul, but I think it'll pay off in the end.
Great. Thank you, Anna. That's so true. It really does speak to the culture of philanthropy is you just keep moving and moving and moving, and it moves forward, kind of like we move our mission forward. So we are about out of time. I have really enjoyed talking with you all today and having this conversation, and I'm glad we all have each other's contact information. And please know you can reach out to me. I'm happy to continue any conversation with you. And I just love sharing ideas and hearing what people are doing, because it really truly does make us all better. But in closing, I just want to remind everyone is a pop star. So for me, a pop star is a person of philanthropy. And again, this was my have time for questions. But we are out of time, and I want to honor that. But know that you're all pop stars. Everyone on your team is a pop star, and we can do this culture of philanthropy thing and embrace it, and those resources will just keep coming, and it will be very organic and authentic from people who want to join us in our mission. So thank you for the opportunity today to talk about something that's passionate to me.
So thank you for sharing your love for fundraising.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yes, thank you so much, Tami, for leading our initial lunch and learn for AGDN. I think this is a great success. I'm looking forward to connecting you with some of the people in the room today to kind of continue these conversations offline. I think that we've all learned a lot, and hopefully this will, bear some fruits down the road as well. So thank you all very much for attending. I will be in touch with a follow-up email with the recording and some other resources So feel free to stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Anna.